Although I've always been a bit plain and never really stood out, Aaron was good-looking and popular since he was young. As he got older, he became even more handsome, and a lot of under and upperclassmen were into him. He would receive so many chocolates and presents on Valentine's Day every year that he would ask me to help him eat them because he wouldn't able to on his own. I was lucky enough to be by his side. So many people envied me. Aaron and I started dating in high school, which made the number of people who had hated me grow even more. They don't match. She's not cute. There's no way. The other female students would all say things like that. But thanks to that, I became really strong mentally. Even though I was plain looking, being by his side, I began to take care of myself more. When I entered university, no one bullied me anymore. Aaron and I married after we graduated from university. We got along with each other's parents, so the wedding ceremony passed by smoothly. We started living together, but since we both worked full-time jobs, we were both busy and didn't have all that much time together. Because of this, we came up with the rule that if we had time, we would always eat dinner together. We would make as much time for each other as possible and did what we could to protect our relationship. But what I didn't know was that there was a woman who had been bothering my husband since university. 3 years after graduating from university, we were living a peaceful married life until that woman began stirring up drama. It began when Aaron brought some handmade sweets that someone had given him at work. "I'm home. Someone gave me sweets again. Let's eat them together." "Recently, you've been getting sweets 3 times a week?" That day's sweets were heart-shaped cookies. It was obvious that someone was trying to express their feelings for Aaron. Someone liked him. When I spoke to Aaron about it, I found out that all the sweets he'd received recently had been from the same person. Even if he tried to refuse, she would force him to take them. So recently, Aaron gave up on trying to turn them down. My husband always wore his wedding ring, and I made him lunch to take to work every day, so that women knew very well that he was married. I opened up Aaron's lunchbox so I could wash the tapware inside, and at the very bottom, I noticed there was a tiny note. I thought that maybe a note from Aaron's desk had accidentally fallen into his lunchbox. But when I opened the note, I saw it didn't have anything to do with his job. "Let's get married," was written across that tiny white piece of paper. I was about to show my husband the note, but I thought it might make things awkward for him at work. So I changed my mind. I was proud to be the wife of someone so popular. But to think this would continue even when we reached this age. From that day on, I regularly looked at the notes that woman slipped into his lunchbox. And every time I would let out a big sigh. He must also be tired of her. He began taking naps before dinner. He's been pressured by women like this before. But this was the first time I've seen him this tired out by it. "Are you okay? You seem super tired these days." "I'm probably tired because work has been busy. I'll go sleep a bit earlier tonight." After saying that, Aaron took a shower and went to sleep. Maybe because he was so tired, he forgot his phone on top of the living room coffee table. Just as I picked up his phone to put it on his bedside table, he got a text. His phone vibrated 4 more times. Since I was holding his phone, I saw the notifications for those 5 texts. They were from a woman named Sarah. She seemed to be urging him to reply to her. I thought to myself that it must be the woman who's been giving him sweets recently. I didn't feel the need to look through his messages, so I just put down Aaron's phone next to his side, up the bed. I had a sinking feeling about to happen, so I couldn't sleep at all that night. A few days later, Aaron texted me to eat dinner without him because he was going out drinking with colleagues. I was a bit worried because of that woman. I told him to call me if anything happens, and he told me it'll be okay. He probably didn't want me to worry. He knew that many people have been jealous of me since we were in high school, so he probably didn't want me to go through that same sort of trouble now that we are adults. He's probably doing his best to calm the situation on his own. But women are tricky. He might not even realize what she's doing. I knew he could be too kind for his own good, so I wished he could ask me for help as his wife. That day, I ate out and bought myself a dessert on the way home. Around the time I thought Aaron would be back home, the doorbell rang.
Excuse me, this is Mr. Smith's house, right?
Through security camera, I saw a young woman and man. They were carrying my husband between them. I quickly opened the door. The young man carried Aaron up to our bed, and I was left alone with the woman, who smiled at me. I'm sorry about this. Thank you for going out of your way to take care of my drunk husband.
It's okay. Oh, here are some sweets I made.
I noticed that the sweets she handed me were in the same packaging as all the other ones my husband had received recently, and I felt the blood drain from my face. This is definitely that woman, Sarah, who liked Aaron. I thanked her and took the sweets.
When are you and your husband going to divorce?
She whispered into my ear. She gave me a carefree smile, but Aaron's wife, I was furious. She looked me up and down and made a face as if to say she thought she was better looking than me. I glared at her. Aaron's colleague came back from leaving him on his bed, and the two of them left. I decided I would tell Aaron he should change jobs when he wakes up. With my salary and savings, we could get by, even if he doesn't work for a while. I felt like our relationship was at risk if he stayed near that woman any longer. A few hours later, Aaron woke up and I served him a cup of soup I had made. He seemed confused how he had made it home, so I explained everything. Aaron made a guilty-looking face, and his face turned blue. Sue, did she do anything to you? She didn't, but I told him what Sarah had said to me. I also relieved that I had seen the messages she sent him a few days back. Aaron let out a sigh and put his head in his hands. Seeing him like this, I understood that he hadn't told me because he didn't want me to worry. I didn't want him to be troubled with this anymore. So I spoke to him about changing his job. He didn't want to bother me while he was looking for a new job, but eventually he agreed. The next day, Aaron spoke to his bosses and quit. When Sarah realized Aaron wasn't at work, she assumed he was sick and began forcing her way into her home to take care of him. I would try to push her to leave, but she would then burst into tears. It was tough to deal with. If you keep this up, I will call the police.
I was just worried about him.
Sarah began coming over nearly every day. It was getting scary. I would have to pull all my effort into pushing her out of the house. Aaron was getting tired of her too. At this point, she was basically a stalker. Things escalated day by day. At Aaron's ex-job, they tried to help cover up the fact he quit by telling her that he had changed departments. But she ran all over the company trying to find him. I called the police on her, and they gave her a severe warning. After the police got involved, she stopped coming to her home. When things calmed down, Aaron began looking for a new job and managed to find one relatively quickly. His new office was a bit far from home, but he really gave it his all there. For a while, we returned back to our peaceful lives.
I'm relieved everything has calmed down again.
I blocked her number too. I hope everything will be okay from now on. We were a bit worried something would happen again, but we tried to move forward. A few months later, on the way home from work, Aaron jumped out into the street to save a young child. He got hit by a truck and passed away. He was such a kind person. He even risked his life to save that child. I couldn't help but be proud. But suddenly losing someone I loved so much, it was hard for me to accept reality. By the time I made it to the hospital that day, he had already passed away. I burst out crying. Even now, when I'm at home alone, I feel like he will walk in with a big smile on his face any minute. I organized the funeral and invites his family and close friends. Of course, I didn't invite anyone from his old job. Seeing his face peacefully sleeping, I felt like crying. I love your smile so much, so please never stop smiling. I felt like he was saying that to me. I'm sure he wouldn't want to see me sad. Since he passed away so suddenly, I'm sure he regretted leaving me alone the way he did. But he definitely wouldn't regret having protected that child. He saved a life. I'm sure that he would tell me to smile. So I decided that after the funeral, I should try to move forward with my life for the sake of the husband I loved. When he passed, the police gave me his cell phone. Looking through it, there were many pictures of me smiling. Some I didn't even remember. When I saw that, without thinking, I hugged Aaron's phone close to my body. I noticed that he had a huge number of notifications. Surprised, I checked and saw they were all from Sarah. She had found and followed Aaron on every social media platform possible. It seems we hadn't been able to stop her overwhelming feelings for Aaron. Aaron wasn't really the type to go on social media much, so he hadn't seen most of the notifications and messages. There were even messages from after he passed away. From the looks of it, she sent him around 30 messages per day. 5 years had gone since Aaron passed away, and she still messages him daily. Her feelings for him never changed. I peeked at her social media profiles and saw that all her posts were lies about going out with Aaron, being loved by him, and so on. She's been posts every day. Of course, since Aaron passed away, he's not in any of her new posts. Seeing her profiles felt gross. To put it most accurately, I was disgusted. She didn't know he had passed away. If anyone who knew saw her page, what would they think? I'm sure even my husband would be annoyed if he looked down from heaven and saw that this was happening. As I was thinking this, I headed off to work. I had plans to eat dinner with Aaron's mother that night, so after I finished work, I quickly went to the restaurant we planned to meet at. My mother-in-law must be lonely since Aaron passed. Occasionally, we would go out to dinner or to Aaron's grave together. Thank you for always making time to meet me. 5 years have already gone by since Aaron passed. It's okay for you to find someone new to make you happy. It's okay. Aaron will always be in my heart, so I don't need anyone else. My mother-in-law worried about me since so much time had passed and I hadn't remarried. But as I told her, Aaron was the only one for me. I had no plans on meeting someone new. I was happy how I was. "Can I come over to look through your old pictures of Aaron tonight?" I nodded. After we finished dinner, we headed home together. When we made it to my house, we saw that a woman and a couple, seemed to be her parents, were standing outside of my door. I wondered if something must have happened at home, but looking closer, I realized the woman was Sarah. "What are you doing in front of my house?" The three of them turned and looked at me angrily. My mother-in-law probably had no idea what was going on. She didn't know who those people could be. I opened the door and let my mother-in-law into the house. And then I turned to Sarah and her parents and asked them why they were here again. Her mother was the first person to speak. "Your husband impregnated my daughter. How can you talk to us with that attitude?" "What are you talking about?" Sarah's father began ranting angrily. But no matter what they say, my mother-in-law and I couldn't understand what was going on. Sarah's father continued to yell as Sarah clung onto him and cried,
Your husband got me pregnant. Divorce him and give me this house.
"I don't understand what you're saying." "I can't divorce him either." The three of them screamed at me. They told me to stop messing around and to bring my husband to them. Hearing them say all this nonsense, my mother-in-law was outraged. "What are you saying?" "Aaron, who was Sue's husband and my son, passed away 5 years ago." Sarah and her parents went silent. Sarah then began repeating that we should stop lying. When I explained to them what happened 5 years ago, and that the woman with me was Aaron's mother, they were pale. Their shocked faces were incredible to see. I have to give her credit. Sarah was completely delusional. "What? You must be lying." Sarah slumped into the ground and began to cry. Knowing the truth, she was overwhelmed with sadness and by the fact that her lies wouldn't work anymore. Her father began yelling at her for lying. Her mother also hadn't known the truth, and her face suddenly went bright red out of embarrassment. The whole time, my mother-in-law continued to scream at them. "Now that you understand, please leave." My mother-in-law entered the house and we shut the door. We could clearly hear them yelling from the other side of the door, but I didn't care about them anymore. I explained everything about Sarah to my mother-in-law. She hugged me tightly while crying, saying she wished she had known earlier so that she could have done something to help. Her kindness almost made me cry. I hugged her and stroked her back. "It's okay. I'm Aaron's wife after all." After we both calmed down a bit, my mother-in-law headed home. I offered to drop her off, but she said she'd be all right on her own. I looked at a photo of Aaron on the wall and let out a big sigh. We've been through a lot of trouble because of Sarah, but I'm sure this was the last of it. Her parents must have been incredibly angry with her. I'm considering reporting her to the police, but I decided against it in the end. I checked on her social media accounts, and so she had deleted everything. To my relief, she also stopped sending Aaron messages. I put my hand on the photo of Aaron and closed my eyes. She finally understood. The next day, Sarah's parents came with some sweets and apologies. They said they wanted to apologize to Aaron as well, and they stepped inside. They stopped in front of a photo of him and apologized out loud. I glared at them and said I wanted them to promise me something. I told them to promise me they would never let their daughter come near me again, and that if she ever does, I will call the police. I told them what Sarah had done until now, and they promised me they wouldn't let her bother me again. This should be the end of it. I'm sure even Aaron is relieved up in heaven. Sarah's parents left. It's incredible how dedicated Sarah's love was, but I want her to understand how much trouble she caused us. I hope she can also be happy one day. A few more years passed since then, and I still haven't considered getting remarried. I'm sure I never will. Aaron will always be the one in my heart. I hope he's smiling in heaven.